live thing. It's up in the corner of my screen, which means we are live. Hey, I have a quick question for you before we get into this. Do you, what, this these little like emojis
The
and stuff
same thumbs
on?
up and stuff. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's Zoom. We turned it on so that we can
Okay.
play balloons and stuff. Yeah, you got to like sign
Okay.
language to it.
How do I get balloons? Do I go like this?
I
No?
think I've got to see that
Oh,
my
that was
team goes.
hearts. That did
There
a
you go. You got
heart.
the heart. Yeah.
Does that actually show up on the screen too?
Yeah,
Do
it
people see
did.
that?
It did. Yeah.
Oh, well, from me to you,
All right.
listeners and viewers.
Look at that
That's
AI
my. There we
technology.
go. Look at that. Hey, no, there we go. Look at that. Slick as that. So if I go like this,
Yeah, it's gonna pull a
oh
thumb. There you
man,
go.
that's pretty cool. Well, now I know. Okay, so I've been wondering for weeks, literally weeks, what that was. Okay, welcome to Contractor's Corner. I'm Adrian Park, and with me today, System Whisperer, AI Whisperer, Master Roofer, multiple business owner, and super charming Canadian gentleman.
Ooh,
Jake
now
Harder.
you're lying. There's no charm about me. Yeah, you had me right to that point.
So all right, so we're gonna get into some things here. So our first segment here is we're gonna keep going with the math thing because that's been fun. But again, we're going to take a little different approach to the whole math thing, and we're going to talk about owner math today. But we're going to take a little bit of a different road to get there. So we're talking about. So I'm going to tell everybody because I feel like I haven't been telling everyone up front. So we're talking about like differentiating and like standing out today, and I think that I think that when we think about standing out, it's like we make it really complicated. And we're like, we think we've got to do like kind of like backflips and all that. And I think it's actually a lot more simple than that. So I've got a couple clips teed up here that I'm going to share. Let's see. Actually, let me X out of this. I'm going to share these. Okay. I'm going to share a couple clips. They're very interesting, so I'm excited to share these, but also it's going to be fun to kind of talk about this. So give me a second to grab my screen share, and there we go. Okay. Do we have it up there? Got the guy with the goatee on the screen here? Yeah? Jay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, here we go.
But let's be honest. You sell minutes. Period. I mean, your market is minutes. So your biggest competitor isn't other cell phone companies, it's home phones and office phones. Those are free minutes. Those are wasted minutes. So how do we get those minutes back? We reinvent the cell phone. We put a computer in it. We put the internet in it. We make your cell phone so fucking useful that you never have to come to the office again. Does email, text messaging, however you want to communicate. Total individualism, all in one device that fits in your fist. So, you can tell your marketing team you're not selling togetherness anymore. You're selling self-reliance.
Here we go.
You are not a tech guy, are you?
I'm not a...
The whole world, the whole fucking world, is trying to do emails on a cell phone. We had an entire division working on it for, I don't know, 8 months or so. You know how many phones they got to work at the same time? 11. I mean, it's a network that's built for pagers. That's all it can do. You're in la la land on this, on this one. You know, you got, I think, you know, some nerds took you for a ride.
Okay. Mike, what happened? It won't work.
What do you mean it won't work?
Mike, They tried it already.
How did you try this already?
Hey guys, I think the meeting's over.
Did you just put your devices directly on the network as though they were clients?
That's right.
Yeah, right. So what did that get you, like 10 phones working at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, here, just hold this a second. Okay, so here's your issue. When you use a phone as a client, what's it doing? It's just sitting on your network, constantly asking the same question. Did I get an email? Did I get an email? Did I get an email? So it is forever pulling on your servers whether you got an email or not. We have a fix, okay? So, we are going to build a giant computer that will act as a sort of massive client that is hardwired directly to the internet with our phone as server. Okay? So when a user gets an email, Waterloo pulls it in, packages it, and then sends it. We engage with your network maybe a split second, like less time than that.
So how much, I'm sorry, how many?
A month's worth of traffic would be less bandwidth than a local phone call, so you could have 500,000 devices working simultaneously.
There's the aha.
Can we see it?
Yeah, so it's a prototype, so it's a long way off from, it's just a long way off, the prototype.
Well, it's definitely the world's largest pager.
Wait for it.
No, it's actually the world's smallest email terminal.
There you go.
Oh.
Sorry.
I see. And this is this. Huh. Yeah. Oh.
So try with your thumbs. Try typing with your thumbs.
Oh yeah. What do you call it?
It's called a BlackBerry. It sends and receives email messages. It is also a cell phone.
So, I got one more. So but before we move on to that, so I mean, a little bit of a longer clip, and there's so many things that we could talk about with that, but I love that the Bell Atlantic, right? So they're pitching to Bell Atlantic, right? Big phone, phone outfit. He says it's the world's largest pager, and the engineer comes back and goes, no, it's the world's smallest email terminal.
Yeah.
All right, so I got one more here, and then we got some things to talk about. So one more. This is actually much shorter. Give me a second. All right, share sound. Okay, hang with me. All right, here we go. All right.
Let's bring them out. Can we bring the iMacs out, please? The new iMacs for $19.99. They're in 5 colors: blueberry, grape, tangerine, lime, and strawberry. And they are beautiful. They are so beautiful. And we hope that people want to collect all 5.
Did that on purpose.
Yep.
It turns out that nobody's ever made translucent plastic in colors this big before.
This is interesting.
And it turned out that the plastics didn't exist. We've spent the last 6 months, 9 months, learning about plastics chemistry and how to make these things really, really beautiful. And our design team has done a phenomenal job. Again, lime over here. It's beautiful. The keyboards and mice match. Strawberry, it's delicious.
It's delicious.
Blueberry is gorgeous. Grape, what?
So there's more to that, but that's the gist. So a couple of things. First of all, so BlackBerry was, I don't think, or the BlackBerry product was research in motion, which was not a device business. And, I think, what I love about that, clip is that, they didn't, the BlackBerry device itself was a new device. However, the thing that made it work was just a simple, like they just flipped the way, like the phone was a server, the device was a server instead of it being like the client, basically, where instead of pushing from a server out to the phone, it was the other way. And and then of course I love the that line, which I don't, who knows if that actually happened in the room or some version of it, but the world's largest page, the world's smallest email terminal. But going back to and then with Apple, so again, I was a young man when this, or young kid when this was happening in '82, but like in the early '80s, Apple had 22% market share, which is a lot, considering all of their, you had Compaq and HP. I mean, you had IBM, which was the monster back then. I mean, it was a very competitive marketplace, and they had crushed. But then over in the 9 years when, between '82 and '93, they lost 75% of their market share. And so when Steve Jobs came back after being exiled, essentially being fired, when he came back, I think '98, they were in rough shape. And so I don't think like that machine that we saw him introduce from 1999 was basically the internal guts of the machine, like the CPU, the processors, basically the same as what was in the previous machine, a little bit faster, right? But what they did is like the idea, the way he differentiated Apple in 1999 was colors. That was the big, like, yeah, they gave it a shape and everything, and it was obviously that was a pretty groundbreaking thing if you remember. But they changed the design. They basically, the shell, right? They changed that. It was still the same screen, the same, it was still, all that was basically the same as the previous, the previous Apple computer, but they gave it colors and then sold it as like this new exciting thing. But the performance, like the part where you use it to work or to whatever you're using it for, basically was a slightly better version of what had come before. It was just colors, right? Colors and shapes. But the impact to their business is that their sales, that one colors increased their sales by 10%, which is a lot when you're a large company like that. Their market share by 31%, and their profit increased by 50%.
I've got to jump in here on something.
Yeah.
So the part you're missing with that clip there with Steve Jobs, there was something else that significantly changed. Okay. So why Steve Jobs was so unbelievably successful in the launch of, the new Apple products and stuff like that, where nobody was matching him in the market, is that he figured out how to sell to many instead of selling to one. Right. So you see him on stage. Like Apple launched that when they did the launches to like they made them into events. So all of the Bell West, all of these guys would show up to these events that they would pay to have them come down. So Steve Jobs could sell to all of them, and they would. And again, where Microsoft and all those guys were behind is that they would send out sales reps to go and sell individually to those. So he immediately differentiated himself, and they did it cheaper and more efficiently because he could do these big unveils, get everyone excited about it, get them into the same room, and he would sell to many, right? So, I mean, that's where really their contributed to these launches. So you remember the iPod, all those things.
Yeah, iPod,
people-
iPhone.
You see the clips on the internet all the time of him like introducing these things on stage. Who do you think was in that audience? It was all their customers.
Right.
It was all their big time executives from, the phone companies from everywhere else. And that gave him such a advantage to this day they still hold, because you look at their stores and how they're set up. It's all designed to sell to many instead of selling to one.
Well, and I think to your point, Jay, so my point in showing the BlackBerry and then that TikTok about Steve Jobs, the actual launch, is that, getting a group of your top customers together in a room is not a unique idea,
No.
right? You don't have to be a genius to come up with that.
Nope.
And in fact, it was like, everybody, to your point, like for, I don't know, from the 60s to that, at that point was 99. So for 30-ish years, people were hiring salespeople to go out and pound the pavement and sell individual, which you totally should do. But they had kind of let go of that sort of like, with between television, radio, and then having their salespeople, foot soldiers, people weren't doing that. And again, and the same thing with like, if you,
it matched the product, the speed of which they got the information out to their clients. So again, if you're launching a technology product, but it takes 6 months before the rep gets around to tell you that it's launched,
right,
or tell you that this product's coming out, or get you prepared, well, it wasn't efficient enough. So if you look at it, like I read his book and all that stuff, like he was looking at like, even if I sent out like, at the time he was talking about like direct mail and stuff, people didn't understand the concept until they got context to the thing. How is this going to change? And he figured out, and you're right, like he actually stole it from the direct sale market. So he took it from an infomercial. He was watching an infomercial and he was like, wow, these guys are like, he couldn't understand why he continued to watch the infomercial, and it hit him. He was like, what if we created an infomercial, but for like a live infomercial for our products? And really what he's practicing there, which I love, and I'm a big buff of like the history of marketing stuff, is it's a direct response marketing campaign. Big difference between branding. So like a lot, Microsoft and them, like they were spending millions, billions on advertising so that people knew who their name was, but they spent nothing, and they sent out sales rep to introduce their products. Or they would do a press release, or they would do, and the problem with that is, and where Steve really was smart, is nobody found out about it until the launch. So if you wanted to be on the front line, you had to attend the event. And then, again, they took them to the next level. Most of their budget was spent on getting people to that event. And they cut all of their sales costs. They cut all of that. So they took market control that way too, right? So, and a lot of other industries followed suit after that he was the first one to demonstrate, exactly how that direct sale marketing tactic could work, and really grip the sell to many, not to one, right?
Well, and again, that's not, like that's not a crazy innovation. Colors are they're all around us, right? These are not things like you don't have to, so there obviously he made the, and he makes the comment about learning about like the chemistry of colors and plastic, which is, which you would expect, but using, again, up until that point, everything was beige, right? It was all beige. Boring. It was all sort of standard. Yeah. Very boring, very unexciting. And it was like a tool, like this was the first step towards like really making it like, what's the word I'm looking for? Sticky. Like it became more than just a tool. It was like, now it became something that was fun, right? And you want like it was more than just like, I'm using this to work, but like now it's like, it's kind of hitting different desires. So, and by the way, so again, just to kind of like put a little finer point on your, on what they did that year. That was the beginning of what is now like a global event. Like every June they have their like WW, whatever it is, their worldwide launch of whatever they're doing. And it's still, Steve Jobs has been gone for how many years now? Like 10, 12, 15 years. And it still is a global event that people watch in real time online on YouTube or whatever. And I mean, he started like a global phenomenon just with, again, this isn't, you know, this is just that he just got a bunch of their customers together and, you know, and did it in a very interesting way. So why are we talking about that? Well, you know, we're talking today about like how we can stand out in the crowd. And, you know, I'm going to, you know, the way I did that was, you know, kind of borrowed from these guys, you know, from their, you know, from the Steve Jobs book, you know, because, and I've shared this before, but, you know, what I saw was, I saw that in, you know, as a younger contractor, I was like, okay, wait a minute. So like everybody is like, all my competitors are just, they're a dumpster fire, right? And they're, you know, they're just relying on the fact that they're gonna come in as low as they can and try to eke out a profit. And you know, you could see their you could see their operation. You could see, you know, like what a mess people are when you're kind of around them on job sites and whatever else, or you know, pre-bids. And I thought, you know, if we just have like the best execution and just communicate on a regular basis with our people, like our customers, we're going to absolutely crush. And, you know, I made that the company mission. It was, what was it again? It was we restoration projects to delight our customers, quality, beauty, integrity, every project, every time. That was the gist of it. But we actually, it wasn't just like a fancy thing that was on the website. Like we delivered that. Mm-hmm. And just doing that, like just being consistent and executing and having basically a production machine. And of course the work was beautiful and everything else, but like just having that kind of like a machine where like people knew, like if we said we were going to be there, buddy, we were there. And if, you know, like if we said we were going to do it, they knew, they had certainty, right? Confidence that we were going to deliver. And that was, again, that's not a new idea. That's not innovative. It's just, it's a simple thing. Like I looked around, I thought, okay, if I do this better than the competitors, I win a lot. And we did. So I was going to ask you, so that was the thing that I did. That was the non-sexy thing that I did. I'm going to throw it back to you, Jay. What was the non-sexy thing that you did to stand out?
I can go a little bit even deeper on this one. You know, one of the things that was important to me when I first started my business, and again, maybe I learned it in a book or something, but like the first thing that I went to work at was really understanding the customer first. All right. So, you know, I got into the habit. It didn't matter, you know, back then I was selling, you know, around the kitchen table, and I would have long conversations and, you know, really like get to know the customer. And I always ask them the same question is, you know, why did you choose me over, you know, the other 3 quotes that you've had? And sometimes I would even get them to pull out the quotes, and I would, you know, really look at like the system of which they were delivered their quotes. And almost always, you know, you put our quotes side by side. I mean, you looked at them like, you know, mine was obviously a little bit prettier because, you know, that was important to me. That made it. Right. But hold on, we're talking about differentiation, right? Yeah. Mine was always, and to this day, I will say, compared to anyone else in the market, I have the best quote. Yeah, okay. Nice. The most detailed, the most, you know, and that's important to me. Like that is something that I've known for a long time, because they would always use my quote, my folder to put the other quotes in. They would be a one pager. Mine would be detailed with all the you know, the right things. It looked like someone had put together a proper presentation. And I won a lot of jobs without having to sell because of the quote. Right. So the next thing, you know, that they always brought up was, you got back to me immediately. Like, you know, you called me, you told me before I got to the appointment, like, because I would inform them of everything, whether like when I booked an appointment to go see them. All right. Let's say back then I could give it a little bit more time, but I'd always schedule it a week out. The reason why is because I would send a direct mail with a pre-appointment letter. And I would say, hey, like, and I'd set the appointment up, right? Direct mail. So I knew I needed a week to get there. But I also knew something else, is that my competitors would run out there put a quote at their door, maybe not even meet
Right.
them. Like they're just running around throwing out numbers. So I knew I had an advantage that way because I always asked, what was it about this experience? Like, why do you trust me? Right. And it almost always was the same thing. It came back to the way I communicated. It came back to the way I made them feel about the process and the decision. And when it came time to make the decision, it was clearly like it was I led the pack in terms of professionalism, communication, even the way I showed up, like I wore a golf shirt, I was professional, and they would tell me those things. Now let me be really honest with you. Back then, if you've seen the crews that I had, I was doing half new construction and residential on the weekends for side jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
The guys I were putting on their home, if I had not been there, all right, they probably break in through a skylight and steal their stuff. Like they were good as guys, you know what I mean? Like if I wasn't like actually there, and what would you expect? I was a 19-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid, all right, that's beating these like seasoned professionals over and over and over again, with the same thing. And all it was, like I used to, have a limiting belief that, oh, they must not have gone with me because of my age. That wasn't true at all. Right. And again, what I started doing next when I was, in my third year, I think, of business is I would call back everyone I lost a quote to. All right. And I would ask them if they would go through a survey with me really quickly, take 5 minutes of their time. Back then people were like, that's all we really had was the phone. And I would also mail them out a lost sales survey. And let me tell you, every time I lost a job, I knew exactly why. All right. So for many years, for 3, 4, 5 years, to this day, we still use the same
That's
survey.
really good information.
But I went down to it because not guessing at why I lost a job.
Right.
And you know what? People would be very honest. You would start with, getting them neutralized, getting them feeling comfortable about explaining it to them. Like, hey, you know what? Listen, I'm not going to bother you for the work. I just, to help my business grow, I really like just to ask you, a couple quick questions, just to find out, what I could do better to improve the business in the future. Absolutely. Right. And again, and what it always came down to, guess what? It was the way that I communicated. It was, and ironically enough, I could tell when it was price. All right. And a lot of times it was price because again, I started off charging, as much as I possibly could. And I didn't want to be the lowest guy because that in itself is a differentiator. So what I came to, be obsessed about and to really understand is the avatar, the client that responds to this kind of, process, this kind of, when I called them back within, an hour of them requesting a quote, like if they called me, like I'd pick up my phone, I would be in constant contact. I sent out the mailer to let them know. I sent a 1-day thank you letter after I had the meeting with them to thank them for their time. I sent out 8 weeks of follow-ups, like by mail, like every customer got one because back then there literally wasn't any, like email was just coming out. And then when we started with email, we started doing that. Right. So, but that got me the same customer, the same way every time. And it was, at that exact time, I didn't know why that pattern was. And I was getting, like, I would get frustrated by it because I'd go to some places and I'd be like, why didn't I get this job? And, when you start to do these surveys, you start to find out a few things like, and very rarely did it come down to trust. All right. It wasn't to do with my age. It wasn't to do with any of the things that I had told myself that it would be. Right. And then even to prove the point in the differentiation part, back then there wasn't a whole lot of money to go around for advertising and marketing and stuff. And to be honest with you, like we all did the same thing. We put our name in the phone book and whoever owned the biggest phone book, thing
was real estate and the yellow
that's what I
pages,
thought marketing and sales were. But I did something else that, almost by accident that got me so much further than everybody else and allowed my business to grow almost organically. Is that even if a job went bad, and believe me, I had lots. Like, again, I was talking to someone this morning, a client, and one of the topics he had brought up is like, when I explained to him our sales process right now, he's like, man, and he's like, because you guys do the best work. And I was like, it hit me. I was like, what do you mean? Like, explain that to me. He's like, well, you do this, this, and this, so you must do the best work. And this is a contractor. Okay.
Wow.
And he's
Yeah.
like, you do all that. And I'm like, no, you know what? If I have to be honest with you, okay, do we do the best? I'm sure there's guys out there that do a hell of a lot better job than we do. I
Sure.
almost guarantee it. Okay.
Right.
I know competitors that are obsessive compulsive about their work. And a lot of times they think they're differentiated by saying, I
Right.
do good work. And in
Right.
fact, they're doing the opposite. And I
Right.
really had to, I really had to take that to heart. Now, are we accountable? Are we responsible? Like, does that, like, of course, all of those things play in. But just for a contractor from the outside looking in, when I explained how well I treated my customer, that immediately related to, you must do good work.
Yeah.
So think about the way that you're differentiating yourself when guys, and I see a lot of contractors, because this is all they have. They haven't figured out marketing. They haven't figured out sales. They assume that if they do good work, all right, as if the customer would know the difference between good work or not.
Yeah.
If they did
Right.
good work, then they'll grow. And it's simply not true, because listen, I did do okay work, but I did something way more important. All right. I followed up. I was consistent. I
Right.
communicated well. When the job was done, all right, good or bad, all right, I always asked for their honest opinion on how I performed. And I stood in front of that customer. And I remember lots of times when they were, those conversations are hard to sit through. All right.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And I finished every job the same way. All right. I would send them, a box of cookies. All right. And, I would a handwritten thank you letter for their work. All right. I did that for many, many years
Yeah.
of just
Yeah.
thank you so much. And no matter what happened, all right, it seemed that we always, like, by giving that last show, and showing them my appreciation for their business and just being personal with them, it even people that told me I was a human piece of shit, and that I was a liar and everything else, a little cookies, a handshake, everything else.
Yeah.
And the weirdest part was a month or 2 months would go by and I'd get a referral from them. I'm like, I couldn't explain it. Like, and referrals, those kind of referrals are the most, the easiest ones to sell. And when you don't really market and you're relying on those referrals, you're relying on word of mouth. All right. Which at the time I very much was, you know what I mean?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
If you were to add in those little touches, okay, a coffee mug, for example, like, finish your job off, even if it's a commercial contractor, get everybody coffee mugs. Why? What are
Right.
they walking around the office with?
Your
Right?
coffee mug.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A magnet for their fridge.
Right.
Magnet goes on the fridge, right? Now they'll recall. The last thing that we do, and still to this day we do, is just because we've done the job with them, all right, and the roof's done, does not mean that I don't keep in touch with them. I don't, wish them Merry Christmas. Like,
Right.
Like, all clients to me are a part of our organization now. They have helped us grow. And I have clients on my email list from the very first clients I did business with. Okay.
Crazy.
Like, we're talking way back.
crazy.
I'm going to tell you
Yeah.
the truth of this. Our sales rep just sold a roof in the summertime to the very first roof that I ever did.
Wow.
Okay. So you tell me this stuff doesn't work. The very
Yeah.
first roof that J. Carter
Right.
Roofing ever installed,
That's crazy, man.
when it was due to be done, right?
Yeah.
23 years down the road, he
Right.
called us first. Why?
That's
Well, that's who I
awesome.
know.
Yeah.
I've kept in touch. I've sent him mail. I've over the years, we've gone back and we've done repairs. We've, put on new east troughs for them. We've done
Yeah.
other things. And then when they move, I can't tell you how many clients are multiple repeat clients. All right. And it doesn't take more energy or time. It takes being organized, but really sincerely believing and looking at that client journey. And remember, at the end of the day, what do people remember? What do people remember about you? I promise you, okay, they're not going to remember how long the job took. They're not going to remember, how slick you talked, or how
No. Right.
clean your trucks were, or how lettered they were.
Right.
They're not going to remember any of that stuff. Okay, they're going to remember how you made them feel. Okay.
Boom.
And
Yep, that's right.
if you make them feel like they're royalty, all right, and I did a very good job of doing that. Even and again, it allowed me to get away with a lot. And I mean, again, like, cowboy wasn't like, I felt like a fake and a phony the whole way, like imposter syndrome to the nine. Like you would not believe, like, you know, I had just left my parents'
Yeah, I know
basement,
what you mean.
and
Yeah,
here I
yeah.
am driving around a truck with,
Yeah.
you know, that I'm not allowed to drive. I have no driver's license for.
Right.
I have the roofers driving me around. You know, a trailer that I painted in my backyard that, you know,
Right.
was not roadworthy. And,
Right.
you know, I remember like I would borrow money to buy shingles, and like it
Right.
was, you know, like the epitome of like everything you shouldn't be, right? And
Yeah.
again, you know, and when I think back of like what I got right and what I got wrong, you know, the fact that the very first person that ever bought a roof from me didn't believe they were buying the first roof from me, and that I really had gone, you know, through all the steps with him, and continued that for many years. Now, you know, since then we've, you know, we don't deliver the cookies anymore, but I might get back into that now that I recall. And we do send the thank you letters and all those kind of
Yeah.
things, but you know, it's those things that they remember, that it's how you made them feel. Were they confident in you the entire time? And let me tell you guys, for a lot of guys out there that tend to have the same problems, that, you know, a customer stiffs them for money, they're, you know, they're having to chase receivables, they're having, like, that's an indication that you have something broken, either in the way that you're marketing, all right, the way that you're messaging, the way you're presenting yourself, all right, or differentiating yourself, however you'd like to put it. Because listen, if someone respects you, all right, they can be mad at you, all right, they can be pissed right off at you, but if they respect you and they respect the way that you're doing business with them, all right, those things don't happen.
Yeah, I think, you know, I agree. And I think that, again, I just want to point out that we still haven't said anything that is like, you know, like some sort of magical, right? Like it's not, there's no magical tool or a magical, you know, like a magical app. There's not a magical app. It's like,
not magic
these are all blocking and tackling, you know, like just good old fashioned. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm like you. I mean, I built my career. I wrote thousands of handwritten notes and letters to my customers.
Right.
And, you know, it wasn't, I mean, did I enjoy writing them? I mean, I don't know, maybe not. I enjoyed the outcome, but it was like one of those things that I thought like, and then I'm talking about early in my career, you know, early 2000s, and I was a snot-nosed 26-year-old kid giving financial advice, which is still to this day scary to me.
But that's,
and
that's what I'm
right.
saying,
I mean,
right?
I'm like, I don't have a fucking penny to my name, and I'm telling people what to do with $100,000 or $200,000 or $500,000. And so, you know, like it was, again, the things that I, you know, what I built my career on, both in banking and then obviously, you know, and in the masonry business, there wasn't a single, now there were some, I mean, we ended up finding some things. I mean, you know, I ended up building some technology that where I could predict the end of a job and like when we'd actually we'd complete a job. But again, that wasn't fancy. That was, I used an Excel spreadsheet for that. And I just used the information that my men were at one point writing down, and I had them do it into an electronic Foreman Daily. And then I just processed the information, and I could tell anybody, I mean, outside of like a short couple week job, if it was like, you know, 4 weeks or 6 months or whatever, I could tell any of our customers on any of our commercial jobs exactly, like I was accurate for within 3 to 5 days, you know, on how long like when we would complete. And it was scary actually how accurate I was. Now that was the thing, but I mean, again, that was a fancier thing, but that was an Excel spreadsheet. It wasn't even an app. And it was just using the information that I was getting from the field, but using it quicker than say other people were. That's it. You know?
Right. And again, you know, it doesn't take much to differentiate yourself in the contracting world. Where I see the biggest and where I experienced the problem firsthand that I ran into is once sales became out of my hand, right, or the business got really busy, it was maintaining that. So like when I went to 2 crews, 3 crews, 4 crews, you know, the difference nowadays is you can, like, the technology there, although you're still delivering a simple process, writing someone a letter or sending somebody an email is not a difficult thing.
No,
right?
it's not.
It's
Yeah.
it's when you now when companies lose those values because they get busy, right?
Right.
Work gets complicated, or they forget, or like it's not made the priority, right? And I think we overthink these things. I talk to contractors
Way
constantly.
overthink them. Yeah.
They will, it's paralysis by analysis. They like, I could give them the exact form. In fact, I have a brand new asset or tool if anybody's interested on activating your
That's right.
CRM and your
Yeah.
follow-ups. It's weird that we're talking about this, and in there I literally give you this formula of exactly the contact
It's the
that
whole
got
thing.
me
Yeah. It's
right,
the
that
whole
got us
system. Yeah.
selling 25-30 million dollars worth of work. And it's not complicated. Like, if I went back to the bare bones basics with no technology, right, what was working back then still works today.
Right.
It hasn't
That's
changed.
right.
And where I want guys to really be focused is focus on the simple things that you can consistently deliver. All right. So, before you go out and buy, the brand new $100,000 trucks and think, if I just
Right.
had a nicer truck, people would
Right.
call me more.
Right.
That's not
Nope.
true. Okay.
No,
They
it's
actually
not.
call you less because they're going to think that they're paying for your truck.
Right.
I know this for a fact, guys. Like, you can't argue with me. I have very boring work vehicles that look like work
Yeah.
vehicles. Even our
Right.
sales, it's a family van, right?
Right.
Why do you
Yeah.
think that is? You're not trying to be flashy. Okay.
Right.
You're not trying to be, you're not trying to show how dominant you are and how much money you can spend on something that's absolutely impractical for what you're doing. Right.
Right.
Now, again, a lot of that is personal, right? Like, you're doing it to personally show how well you're doing. That's not it. Right. I've just,
Right.
from my experience, having well-wrapped trucks, all those kind of things, but you can use, like, if you want to give your guys $100,000 vehicle to drive around in, well, we know what you'll be working towards,
Right.
providing, right? And again, different businesses, so it doesn't apply to everything, but that's been my experience. If somebody were to really, again, take the example that I'm showing you and focus on the way they communicate, focus on the things that they say, and really say the same thing to every single client until you've got it to a point where
Right.
very few things are outside of the range of the things that would come up, right? And I like to call this, really, if you want to stand out from the crowd, time the objections. Time the objections. Understand what your customer is questions they're going to ask you, right? What are the same top 10 questions that they're going to ask you? Great.
Right.
If you know those, what are you going to start to do? When I'm setting a sales call, like, I want to get those things out of the way first. All right. I want to have resources available. What
Right.
I did? I put them all into a document with a checklist of how to select a roofing contractor. Oh, by the way, here's the 10 objections, or we'll call them objections, or questions that we get asked
Right.
the most. And we're going to
Right.
explain them to you so that, again, when we get to meet you, you've already got a little bit of trust in us because we
Right.
already been through enough. Right.
Right.
And on top of that, like, there's no contact missed, between setting the appointment. Now, I want to confess something to you. All right.
Okay.
I am a natural introvert. Okay. Believe it or not, I don't like talking to people. I'm not, it's not my, like, I dread it. Right. Especially people I don't know. Like, that's why I was never, I did it because I had to. Right.
You're
So
hiding
I
it
learned
very
to use-
well. I'm going to
Right.
speak on behalf of all the viewers. You're hiding it
Right.
very, very well.
Well, you've been in sales long enough, but, like, really, I'm not your natural extrovert salesperson, like, that loves to have chats with people. No, like, I
Right.
tried to systemize it so that I could avoid, the
Yeah.
awkward conversations. And
Sure.
back then, again, I'm trying to hide the fact I'm 19 years old, trying to sell very expensive roofs.
Yeah.
And I was
Right.
not ashamed of it, but I knew that it was something that people might look at and judge. Right. So I
Of
always
course.
tried to, present myself a different way. And even when I was starting, like, back when I was 14, 15, 13, I couldn't let anybody know how old I was. So
Yeah.
I learned to communicate the least amount, but with the most
Right.
impact that would
Right.
give the impression like I knew what I was talking about. All right. And again,
Yeah.
it's carried on. And really, when I look back on this conversation of, like, how did I continue to grow? Like, how did I manage to keep business and, have these crazy years? Like, what was the difference between me and, this guy and this guy? And some of my competitors have been around just as long as I have, if not longer.
Right. Or
Right. Like, we
longer,
have
yeah,
a
sure.
very stable market, like, very stable competition. And I've asked myself, like, why did I grow? And, like, why could I do things sort of on demand? And I'm reminded of the first 3 years of asking the same question, because I would see their quotes, I would see their stuff, like I would understand.
Yeah.
And it always was the same thing. It was the way that you made me feel, right? It was the way that you communicated your value. It was the way that, without saying value, obviously, but
Right.
I came across and I answered the questions before they were asked. All right. I showed up like I said I would, on time. All right. We delivered every time. I'm not going to say we delivered perfectly, because it just wasn't
Right.
true.
Well, it's
Right. There was a
yeah,
lot,
right.
there was a lot, that we could have done better, like most companies could. But, I think, again, looking at what most contractors, especially newer contractors, come through believing is that they have to deliver, this bang up service, and like they're focusing on the work, and it makes sense, but they do nothing in terms of the communication and the contact, right? They do nothing. Now that I've matured as a company, I hire people, and this is for guys that are more established, that have sales teams and stuff. I see this problem. I did this right off the bat. I hired guys that I liked and trust, myself personally.
Right.
You see a problem with that? I don't fucking like
yeah.
people. I don't want to go and talk to new people. So why would I hire someone like myself? He
Right.
had to be a roofer. He had to know about roofing,
Yeah. Right.
and they would do the same thing. They go out and pitch roofing, and I found my sales would just, they would get crushed. And I went through sales rep after sales rep. And then, finally you get to a point where you're like, okay, what's really missing here? Like what? And I'm looking at it and I'm going, I'm hiring people like me. Like, there was no other way. Like, this guy looks like me, talks like me, sounds like me. Like, there's
Right.
nothing wrong with that, but he's not me,
Right.
obviously.
Right.
And it really was that. I was like, what if I were to find someone that loves to communicate, loves to chat, loves to have
Right.
conversations, loves
Right.
to
The
have
anti-you.
the anti-me, right?
Right.
Like complete opposite.
Yeah.
And that was a hard thing for me to swallow, and even to this day it still is, right? Because
Sure.
you start to realize, like, hey, what makes a great salesperson is, partially to do with the company behind them, and the process of selling. All right. But there is, like, when you get to the upper level, it really does come
Warm
down
charisma.
to, that's right.
Oh, absolutely.
Somebody
yeah.
that's, knows how to treat someone, knows how to charm, knows how to be, like, that takes you to the next level, right? Really getting the right people in that role. If you want it to scale without you, okay, if you want your business to grow with a sales team without you, okay, without your influence, without you constantly having to put your hand in and go, I got to save this sale or save that sale.
Right.
You have to really design the team, around that, customer first concept. The people that are strong leaders, we've been into this a lot of times. You want to differentiate yourself, start hiring leaders. Stop hiring
Right.
people that are yes men to you, that you feel
Right.
comfortable because you can control.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
This is, a symptom I see, and this goes all the way through your hiring chain. If you want to pay peanuts, you're going to get monkeys, right? I can
Right.
tell you that's, a commandment here. If you learn to hire people that are better at doing the thing than you are, and again, there's lots of ways to, scorecard that, and lots of ways to really come to grips with that. But most contractors that brag to me about how great at sales they are, when I put them through a sales exam, all right, that actually takes the aptitude of their skill set, all right, that actually, like, you can't cheat on, they're not very high. And
I think I know where this is going. Yeah. Right.
They're not very good. Okay.
Right.
So again, you want to differentiate yourself, start hiring people. And again, this is a testable skill. You can't cheat this test. Okay. For the aptitude in sales, if you want to increase your sales, you want to have, breakthrough years, hire the right people to sell your product or service. Right. Focus on the system that they deliver, and the core values that your sales team has. All right. And you'll see explosive years. Like, that simple, right? That easy.
To your point, I was going to say, while we're on the topic of sales, I've heard on actually people, I don't know, a dozen TikToks, but it's true. People defining charisma as warmth meeting competence, and that's really, I think that's a great definition. And that's what a solid salesperson will give you. A charismatic salesperson is someone that's warm,
right,
and also has competence. And I think too, like you were saying about your FAQs or, objections. And that was also something that I did the same thing because, we were the most expensive in the market, period, full stop. Like nobody was literally there was nobody more expensive than us. And so, and I didn't want to lower our prices and, ever, and it was actually a running joke, like, because sometimes the owner would be like, well, should we lower? I'd be like, no. And
Right.
like the team would make a joke. They would like, look at me. And I'd be like, you know what I'm going to say? And so, I think you've read it, but Chris Voss, the FBI negotiator guy that's kind of
Yeah, I know
big
which book
now
you read.
on YouTube and stuff, and
Mhm.
wrote a really good book called, oh crap, I can't remember the name, but anyway, Never Split the Difference.
Yep.
And so he talks about this thing that I've seen other guys kind of like repackage, but he calls it an accusation audit,
Mhm.
which is right, and so what he means by that is like, so he tells a story about how he went and basically kind of like broke the chain of command and went and like went overseas and like basically to help out with a situation. And maybe it was Canada, I don't remember, but he went outside of jurisdiction and he didn't talk to the head of that jurisdiction. And when he called when he was already there and that person found out and was pissed, he called him and was like, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
Mhm.
And that was his way of saying, look, I know I effed up. I take full responsibility. And, and that was something that I was like, ooh, that's really good. And so when I would, one of the very first things that I would tell people, whether it was a, $30,000 residential job or a, multi-year $2.8 million commercial job, is I would say, look, I'd say, first things first, we are most likely going to be one of the highest, if not the most expensive quote that you're going to get. And here's why you should work with us.
Right.
So I would say, like, I would come right out and say, we are most likely going to be the most expensive, but here's why we're worth it. Right.
Right.
And I wouldn't apologize. And I would say it just like I'm saying it right here on this live stream. I would say, here's why we're worth every penny. And frankly, I think we're actually worth more than that, which was kind of a fun thing to say, because that always got a response like, what? You're most expensive and you're worth more than what you're actually going to charge us. But guess what? I got a lot of contracts, right? I got so many people to sign with me, and I was the most expensive. I was the highest, right? Now, part of that is I wasn't bidding low bid work, right? So, I mean, I was, we've talked about this. I had dialed into my target customer. So I knew I had a shot, even if I was the most expensive. And, but like coming out and being like, just head on and saying like the thing that I got, like the feedback that I got for the first 3 years in the business was like, you're expensive, you're high. And so I was like, well, let's just step into that. Right.
Mhm.
So we're the most expensive for a reason. And, and I think, again, going back to what you were saying, Jay, like if you want to stand out, like it's not having the right saw or the right truck or the right trailer or a cool logo. I mean, all those things are great, right? And I mean, I'm into that. I like the logo thing, and I think Contractor Ai, we've got a super cool logo. Shout out to it, Alcy.
Mhm.
But that stuff is second to, if you want to stand out, you want to be the guy or the lady that, like, whether you're a remodeler or you're a trades contractor, or you're a general or whatever, just do the simple things, do the fundamentals, over deliver, and you will stand out. Right. Because most people are cutting every corner, right?
Right.
They're cutting every corner. And when they are, when they're busy, they're raising their prices, not for any reason, just because they're busy, right? And when they need jobs and they're out and they don't have work for their men, they're slitting their own throats and slashing their job, like no rhyme or reason, and they're not executing any better, right? Like, so like it's really simple. I mean, and it's not hard. It's not complicated. Again, you don't have to have an education. You don't have to like, all you have to do is just, if you just over deliver, right? Just do the fundamentals, like, what your experience and what my experience has been. It's not like, there's no magic here, right? Like,
No,
I mean,
and-
you're a
and-
smart guy, but you're not
No.
not any smarter than most people out there. Some people say I'm a smart guy. I'm not smarter than, I didn't get a special shot of sperm or gene thing when I was born. I'm just a
Right.
dude, right? I'm just a dude that like
if
executes
anything,
the fundamentals.
if anything, smart guys get in the way, right? Like
Yeah, good
if you
point.
take what I did, I didn't, first of all, I didn't get it from, like, I stole that. Like somebody gave that to me. I can't remember
Right.
exactly who,
Oh
but
yeah. Oh yeah.
like,
Oh yeah.
I
100%.
remember just reading, and really it was because I didn't know any better. Like the
Right.
best way to purely learn. And I just thought about, what am I going to do? And like, if selling's not my strong suit, which I knew, and like nobody really, if you talk to 19-year-old Jay versus 19-year-old or 38-year-old Jay, it's a big difference.
Right.
And uh, just by following that simple process, I was able to grow and scale a business, to where we are today.
Right.
And none of that stuff there is complicated. None of it, like, again, when guys really figure this stuff out, they're like, it can't be that easy, but it is, because you got to look at what everyone else is not doing. What are they spending their time thinking about? Like,
Right.
it's either delivery, or we got to do it cheaper, or and none of
Right.
that is the right answer. None of that is actually what the customer is looking for, right? Be it commercial, be it residential. Go to commercial is a prime example. We've done very well in our commercial side of things, to the point where, I mean, we're probably the only contractor that can demand deposits up front and tell them basically when we'll be there on our schedule, right?
Right.
If they want us, great. If they don't, oh well, right? It's very rare in the commercial space. And again, I get back to, why have we had some contractors that continuously purchase us, year after year after year? And I think I told the story last week about the barber and all that kind of stuff, but I think
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
here again. I'll give the example. If you went to a barber, first time, you shaved your face, did a great haircut, really treated you like a king, and did all the extra little things that you never had before, and you were excited, you loved the haircut. Second time you go back, same deal, but he never shaved your face. Third time you go back, he's kind of cold. Doesn't shave your face, just kind of gives
Right.
you a regular man's haircut. Are you going to go back the fourth time?
Probably not.
No. Right.
Yeah.
Now, let's put this into perspective. Had you gone in the first time, he gave you a good haircut, right? Was warm to you, didn't even have to shave your face or anything. And, you could count on that. And you went back the second time, same thing. Third time, same thing. Would you go back the fourth
Right.
time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So think of your
Consistent.
business the same way. And here's the other hack that, most guys don't consider. If you want to find out where the problems are in your business, okay, it's easy to look at the whole thing and go, it must be sales, and we're going to guess at that. So we'll throw some shit at that. It must be
Right.
marketing. We'll throw some shit at that. Really, it's quite simple. What aren't we doing that we've done that worked? Right?
Right.
What do we need to improve? Where does that need to be improved?
Right.
Very simple. So again, if we have a problem with sales, okay, and we're not closing at, a consistent base, let's go back and look at what's not being done anymore that we already knew that worked, right? So is the customer being, informed? Are we sending our pre-appointments out? Are we, booking them? Or is the, if everything's the same there that it was, all right, well, now we're going to take and look at the marketing. What's changed in the marketing? Right? Or what do we need to improve? We're going to move one piece, and this is important. We're going to move one piece at a time. Okay. So we're going to make one adjustment, and we're going to see how it improves. Does it improve? Does it not improve? Right? And if you think about each part of your business being production, sales, marketing, finance, all this, if you were to, look at those all the same way as, a assembly line, okay, if you were running an assembly line, would you just start taking all the pieces apart to try and fix the
Right.
assembly line? No.
Right. That's
You would
right.
start at one side and you would, again, you want to think of your business the same way. And in
Yeah.
order for you to really know for sure where the problem lies, if you don't have a system, right, that consistently delivers that value to your customer. And again, it's very easy. Like if you take one of these ideas that I've shared with you today, let's take the box of cookies. Okay. Let's use that as the example. If you were organized and you decided to add the box of cookies, first of all, you would hire a third-party company that every time,
Right.
off your CRM, it would send them a notice,
Automatically. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see now how our sales improves or our referral improves. Okay.
Right.
We take that measurement because you cannot manage what you cannot measure. Okay. Right. And all of these things come back to a measurement for me. Anyways, I can diagnose my sales problem very quickly by looking at numbers. All right.
Right.
I can see when, something's changed in the system that's caused, this issue, right? Or it might be the sales rep, right? Again, you have to try and get problems isolated. And then when you've isolated them, now we're going to make small changes. I see too many times, big companies too, they do the panic reactive thing, right? I've got a sales problem, so I must buy more leads.
Right.
Perfect. They never learn how to sell. So again, when I talk to some of our clients, and believe me, I feel for them in every sense of the word. Okay. But they come up and they tell me that they're getting 3 to 4 leads a day. All right. But they're having a sales problem. They're not converting. It must be because everybody's cheap in the market. I stand back and I go, okay. So prove it. In God I trust. Bring me your data. Show me that that's the case.
Right.
What do you mean? Okay, well, show me the closing ratios. Show me the, show me the performance of your sales team. How many conversations? How many follow-ups? How much is being done and done consistently? All right. And almost immediately we start finding the cracks. Well, we're giving out quotes, but they're not following up. Well, you lose 60% of your sales that way. Right. And again, we get into this differentiation. Like, how do you expect to be different than anyone else? And especially right now, guys, here's a scary statistic that I've been tracking. We've seen our cost per acquired customer, and anybody that knows me knows that that's a very important number to me. Okay. I've seen it steadily increase. Okay. Dramatically. And I know from past recessions and stuff like that, that's not unusual, but here's how I know that the number I haven't lost. Okay. So I'm okay as the number keeps climbing up, because what happens in a recession is people hold on to their money and stall on projects. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Where I'm seeing that occur is my open estimate. So they haven't given us a yes and they haven't given us a no. Okay. So that number is equally as large as the cost per acquired customer. Right. So as it inflates, if I was getting more no's though, then where do you think I'm going to go? Right. I'm going to go and start looking at my sales, my conversion, all those kind of things. So again, when you know those numbers and you can start to put your finger on where the real problem is. Okay. And you would be blown away, guys. You'd be blown away when we I've been doing the analysis, business assessments with clients, which we've set up to kind of test out where the problems are. And we've had a number of clients come back to me, to my face, and been like, this report's not accurate. It's not true. I'm like, well, let's go through it. They were yes and no questions. Right. So they think they have a sales problem or a lead problem. Right. When in fact, they actually just deliver shitty service. Their customers don't like them. Like, what else do you want me to say? Like, you should be getting referrals on every job, or, you should be at least having good, reviews and stuff going out. You're not. So is that a sales problem or is that a marketing problem? No, it's a production problem. You're not producing a quality experience for your clients, right? If we fix that one piece, right, then we fix the communication between them, you would be generating more referrals, therefore, more opportunities. Like, it's not magic. It really isn't. And where we think a lot of times the problem is us just guessing at the problem. We don't have any clue, right? So again, you get into this, how to differentiate yourself. Like, we just laid out.
I was going to say, Jay, that, you know, I think that I was actually going to, you said what I was thinking, which is that, you know, there, you know, you can think of, and I don't want to get too in the weeds here, but like one of the things that helped me a lot, was I was like, okay, let me like, there's all this stuff going on, but like, let's chunk it down. So I chunked the business into like, you know, there was all the enterprise stuff, which was like your administration, all that technology, recruiting and everything. And then and then it was just real simple. It was marketing, sales, finance, production, and service, right?
Mhm.
And so like, and so then I was like able to kind of think about like, okay, so, you know, what's working for me in marketing? What do I need to work on? You know, what's working for me in sales and what do I need to work on, and so on and so forth. And that's actually a place, something you helped me with a lot when we worked together previously, which was like you helped me to find like you were like you need to get a controller in, right? Like
Right.
you know, replace, because we had a bookkeeper and it was an interesting situation to say the least.
Mhm.
And
Oh yeah, those are always pleasant, aren't they?
yeah. And so, you know, and so I think that, and so I bring that up because, you know, even though I had my arms, like, even though I really understood where the business was and knew where I wanted to go and all those things, and we were growing, I mean, we had a, you know, I mean, had built really a great, or rebuilt a great business, but, it still needed help. You know, I still needed like fresh eyes to, you know, like kind of point me to like where I needed to, like, you know, because the reality is if you tear it apart, there's like, you could just go into total overwhelm. There's like
Right.
25 things that need to be
For sure.
fixed, but there's two or three, or maybe one or two that are going to have a disproportionate impact if you focus
Absolutely.
on those things. Right.
100%.
And so I think, you know, one of the things that it seems like where we're having success with our clients at Contractor AI is like maybe finding the things that are going to have like that disproportionate result,
Absolutely.
right? Because like, and sometimes I think, you know, we sit down with people and and they think they have one problem, but it turns out they actually have a different problem.
Right.
And by fixing the thing that they're not thinking about, it actually fixes the thing that they are thinking about,
It's
right?
so again, it's kind of a loaded question because you know what we go through here at Contractor AI with some clients, and you know it's always amazes me. I can go in and I call it, you know, looking at somebody's watch and telling them what time it is. You know, one of the
Right.
you know, and again, it's hard sometimes because you know I have the conversation of, and literally it goes like this. So you know, my sales dropped. Okay, why did they drop? Well, I stopped doing X, Y, and Z. It's like, okay, so why don't you do X, Y, and Z again?
Right.
Whoa, that's brilliant. I'll go and start doing that.
Genius.
Like, you know, you're just like, well,
Yeah.
you know, like you get really to those points, and this is what I mean about a lot of owners just they can't see the forest through the trees, and it
Right.
happens to me. Like you've seen it happen to me in Contractor AI, where you're like,
Absolutely.
you know, it happens to the best of us because when you're in it, it's so difficult because you're getting hit with so many different things. When
Right.
you're trying to solve a very specific problem, I mean, unless you're really, again, you're really, you know, self-aware and you're really aware of that business and you have the numbers to kind of, you know, guide you along the way. But I'd say for the majority, 90% of owners that don't have those things currently or yet, you know, it really does take, you know, looking at something with a fresh set of eyes. It takes a
Yeah.
second opinion to either validate your concern or, you know, point you the different way, because a lot of times it's literally like when I repeat it back to them, they're almost in shock. And I've always wondered
Yeah.
why. And I've had the experience myself, like where you're just like, it can't be that easy. Like there's no way it was just
Yeah.
that. And then they go back to doing the thing, or we help them add a thing, right? Because a
Right.
lot of times, you know, the holes are not visible and they don't have the team around them to really, you know, pinpoint the problem. And again, especially with sales and marketing, you know, production, delivery, like they have to be complete processes. You have to try and get them completely to a circle as best as you can, right? It's when you're off track with those that things start to get out of control. It's when you start to get big wobbles and big ups and downs, right? And again, I know
Yeah.
from my own experience, a lot of times, guys, it's the simple day-to-day boring stuff that gets missed or gets lost or that gets forgotten about, that forces you into these situations. So again, a company grows in production size. They forget all of the things that got them to that point, all of
Yeah.
those conversations, all of those small touches with the clients. And then a year or 2 years down the road, they've made this growth pattern, but now they're on the decline, right? Or they hit a bad part in the market and they're on the decline. You got to get back to what worked, right? What was the recipe that got you to where you were, and I'm talking about sales and marketing stuff, right?
Yeah.
Again, and sometimes things need to be replaced or completely, revamped. But again, how do you get that perspective? How can you see that and make those changes confidently, without support?
Well, I was going to say, Jay, I think I want to just go back to something you said, because, again, as someone who was having a ton of success in turning around and then building a machine in the masonry business, and then I went out and I found you,
Mhm.
and well, I mean, you kind of found me too, but that's another thing. But um, you do the same thing. Even though
Right.
both of us, were at play, you are, I was and am at places where, we have, we see a lot of things. We have, a significant track record of success over a long time, multiple decades. And yet, both of us, and I'm saying this because we eat our own cooking.
Yeah, we do.
So we don't just, it's not do as I say, not as I do. We both
Right.
do as I do. Right. So,
Mhm.
so you do it today, right? I mean, we are in, and I think it's important to say too, this isn't part of what we talked about, but I'm going to say it anyway. So, so here at Contractor AI, again, we eat our own cooking. So, for example, Jay has, I don't even know, close to a dozen different consulting and group coaching groups that he has gotten into over the last year or so, maybe a couple of years, I don't know. And so for the overlap, right, I'm in those as well. So, we are on, we're on calls literally. I mean, actually literally every week. I mean, in fact, in some cases, so for my responsibilities, I'm on 3 or some weeks 4 calls a week with men and women who are, helping us navigate the challenges of this business. And, and so we are again, we are doing what we are wanting, other people to hire us to do, which is we're involved in group coaching. We're getting as much, we're pulling on these experts and men and women that have done it, done the things that we want to do, but do them better than us today. And so I didn't, I just thought about that just as we're kind of talking here, but we very much eat our own cooking, and we do the things that we recommend to our clients to do, we do them ourselves.
That's right.
And frankly speaking, again, that's part of, you were saying that you didn't know what to do when you were new in business. I didn't know,
Right.
Shout out to my first mentor, Don, who is also my cousin. I got really lucky. He literally told me what shirts to buy, where to go, what ties to buy, what shoes to buy. He gave me a script on what to say at the door, which I can still say verbatim today, from memory. Hi, my name's Adrian Park. So I would go up, I would knock on the door to door, by the way, knock on the door. I would take 2 steps back. I would turn to the side because I'm a man with somewhat larger shoulders. So to minimize my appearance, so I didn't overpower, especially if it was a, woman or a wife or whatever answering the door. So I would step off, and I'd be standing on the stoop, where I was down, off the step. And I would say, hi there, my name's Adrian Park. I'm not selling anything. I'm with Edward Jones. I'm opening up a new office. And I would go into a minute and a half thing. And my outcome, my objective was to get them, this is before, this is early days of the internet. So I would get them to give me their address, even though I was there, they had to give it to me. So it gave me permission to sort of follow up with them, and their phone number. And I wasn't even getting email. How crazy is that? This is 2001.
Crazy.
So anyway, he told me how to do all of that. Like I memorized it and I said, and every time verbatim, literally like, I don't know, like a couple thousand, 3,000-4,000 times. So, again, I say all that to say like, so we both like, we have, you in your practice, me in my practice, and our practice today together, like we eat our own cooking. And, and so like, there's something that like, there's certain things you're just not going to see when you're standing in the middle of the eye of the storm and like everything is like whipping
Lots
around
of
you at
things you're not
300
gonna see.
miles around. Yeah. So so one, having somebody who understands the space, and that was, again, I'm just going to go back and say, the reason I wanted to work with you was that you had done it, right?
Mhm.
And then I love that you were doing, like, you had a business that you were running, but you weren't, right?
Right.
You were able to step away from, and your business was crushing. Like, that was, to me, that was the game. Like, when I knew that, I was like, the game over, right? There's nobody else I want to work with. And I
Right.
think, I think that's important for contractors to know, like, because we didn't know that people didn't know, like, about you and about me and about some of the stuff we've done. So I'm just going to say it. So it's shameless, but I have to say it because people need to know, like, so today Jay runs a 8-figure roofing business that has been around for 23 years now, Jay, and is in the greater Toronto area and crushes, like, and he also runs Contractor AI. And,
Right.
and like, and it's not, and he's not killing himself running the roofing business. His team runs it, and he's involved where he wants to be, right? He gets to choose what he wants to do. And I think that's what, that was what I wanted. Like, I wanted to be able to decide, like choose where I got to work in the business, right?
Right.
Because when you're an owner, you are everything to
Chief
everyone
everything.
all the time, right? It's
Mhm.
like, yeah, you're a one person army, even when you have, we had 40 employees and I was still one person army.
Right.
So, so I think it's important. I'm going to put the soapbox away, but like, it's important to, one, have a fresh set of eyes. And then when that fresh set of eyes also understands what to look for, right?
Mhm.
And how to evaluate, and then where to spend the time, money, etc. Again, the experience I had when we started working together and the experience our current clients are having working with us is that we're helping define, like, okay, so if you put, if you put energy and time into this, it's going to, like, not only fix this, but it's also going to, like, improve these, like, 6 or 8 other things, right? Like
Right.
a domino.
Well,
It's
and
like the big domino.
we measure the things for them. So, just for anyone that's still listening out there, we do consulting. So a lot of what we're doing, again, is obvious problems that you may or may not be aware of, right? I need to improve my marketing. I need to improve my sales. Well, there's a lot of things that go inside of those, and your specific situation is what we look at. We
Right.
come up with a game plan, a written document, a scope of work that we're going to do. Most of the work we deliver with our team. So we actually build it for you. We develop it for you, and we help you to manage just the change and the mindset that is required to actually operate that system or to implement that thing. As simply as I can put it, it's, a lot of guys struggle with just the idea of the change, I think, and we see it over and over again where contractors are really stuck. And it's very, very frustrating if they actually know what it is exactly they need to do to make the next step, but they just don't have, that thing that's there. Maybe it's a team, a special skill. We go out, we get that. If we don't have it on our own team, again, I use the example of the VA. A lot of guys, they're trying to level up. They need an admin. They don't know how to train them. They don't know what they would do. All those kind of things we solve. We take that off your plate, and then we teach you how to actually communicate with the admin, how to get the results that you need out of that system in order to, continue to build your business and, keep you mostly focused on the business building aspect of why we're all contractors, right? No one got
Yeah.
into it. Hopefully didn't get into it going, man, I hope I stay in the tools the next 40 years with all this stress and all this responsibility. And nobody wants
Right.
that, right? So we help do that. We're not a coaching company per se, although we, obviously you can sell some coaching in here, but coaching is great. But without the actual steps and the team to implement, big processes like sales and marketing,
Yeah.
it's very hard to do on your own. Even in the most inspired state of mind you can come up with, there are going to be gaps. We take those away. We solve big problems, and we work with you on coping with the change and and how to approach something new in your business.
Yeah, and I think again that is I mean, for us, a differentiator is
Absolutely.
that like we don't just show people the problems.
Right.
We show them like not how to fix them, and then we actually can help them.
That's
Like
right.
we can actually like get it done.
It's a tailored solution.
It's like, I mean, we actually can take you through it, and we've got our teams work with their teams, and like it's a collaborative thing. So like there's real action, real results, and that's a big deal, man. I mean, because a lot of folks, a lot of folks spend a lot of money on coaches, and that's, I mean, there's a place for it, and certainly I'm not gonna. I mean, I'm a product of, or I've had a lot of great results from coaching, but we actually like come in and like can help you like with the actual execution, which is a huge deal. And so, yeah, you mentioned this earlier, Jay. I want to bring it up again. So we did just, I mean, we had it all, we had everything. We just didn't sort of have it with all the pretty, like all the artwork that we have now. So we have our 50-page playbook, right? That, we're just giving away. So, it's literally, I mean, tell me if I'm stepping out of school here, but like, I mean, it's literally it's everything.
Yeah,
right. It's
exactly.
it's all
playbook.
the magic. It's all the execution. It's all the processes. It's all the systems. It's everything we do when we get an engagement to work with folks, and we're just we're sharing it. I think to help people see like some of what it takes, and of course if they want to use it themselves, I mean
Yep, exactly.
that's fine too. We want to encourage folks to take the next step. So comment or DM us depending on where you're seeing this, because this is in like 6 or 8 different places right now, or on the replay, same thing. And we're happy to share that. So good. I think just final thoughts. To stand out in the crowd, it's not magic, right? It's really just blocking and tackling, and but I think also again, as a owner operator, you're just, I mean, you point things out to me all the time, like you're in the middle of the storm, like shit's whipping around at 300 miles an hour, and you just don't see things. And so having a highly competent person with a lot of tools and resources behind them, which is what you are, what we are, it makes a difference. And and again, we hold ourselves accountable. We show the results and take response. And by the way, things don't always work the way they're supposed to.
No, that's true.
Welcome to business.
Yeah.
but that's, I think, also a differentiation with us. Like we find a way. So thanks for being with us this week, everybody. So we are here every Friday. This is Contractors Corner, our live stream. We're every Friday at 3:00 Eastern time. And Jay is doing free training Thursdays at 3:00 Eastern time on a lot of these same channels, certainly in our Facebook group, but also a few other places. So check that out. And then I go live also Mondays at noon and share my playbook, which is a lot of the stuff that we do here at Contractor AI, for how I turned around a mason restoration business that was, in really, really rough shape when I came in. So we do this, not because we, want to be YouTube famous or TikTok famous or whatever. We do this because we have deep conviction about helping contractors, with, navigate the challenges of today. For those that want to scale, for those that want to, have a more sustainable business and sustain cash flows and so on. We're really good at that. So anyway, thanks for being with us, and we'll see you again next week.